Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comics, bonds, and more. I, as always, am DJ Wildridge, and I am joined by Roxy Stryer. And today we have a very special guest, the most recurring guest on Only Stupid Answers, Mr. Jason Inman. Say hi, Jason.
Hello. Is it still true? Do I still hold the record?
100. Yes.
Maude Garrett beat me.
Listen, no, Maude Garrett's close. I think Maude Garrett's close. Okay. But the deal is that we typically have Maude on for Star Wars stuff, and there hasn't been Star Wars stuff in a minute to warrant it. So you are well ahead. You are well ahead. So even though you've been on the show the most, in case anybody's not familiar, where can they find you? What are you up to? Who are you?
I am a writer / podcaster. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jawin. That's Jawin. It's the first two letters of all three of my names, Jason William Inman. You can find me every week. I do a cool podcast with Ashley Victoria Robinson called Geek History Lesson, where we take one character, one construct, or one idea and teach you everything you need to know about it in about an hour. We've been going crazy with Bond. In fact, this week's episode was all about the Daniel Craig films. Like we did deep dives in all the Daniel Craig films. We've done the previous Bonds, and for the next 2 weeks, we're doing more Bond episodes. So, like, if you want Bond talk, come over to Geek History Lesson.
It's so interesting with Bond because you kind of forget that, like, because I was revisiting some stuff, and so I watched GoldenEye probably about a year ago, but I was looking up some stuff, and I was reminded that, like, there's jokes about Bond being a dinosaur in GoldenEye, which is like over 20 years old at this point, and it's just a reminder of like how much of a fixture this franchise has been for decades.
Well, the first Bond book came out in 1953.
Oh my God.
Didn't know there was Bond books until this exact moment.
There's a difference with Bond books. So Bond's first book was Casino Royale, published in 1953 by Ian Fleming.
Before a movie, there was a book?
Yes. Yeah, there were several books.
The movies are based on books.
The movies are based on books.
I was just testing you.
See, if you listen to Geek History Lesson, you know this, Roxy.
That is really new knowledge for me. That is incredible.
But here's the crazy thing. The James Bond franchise is unlike any other franchise in the world. And it's so confusing and bewitching that, like, it's almost like you can't look away from it, for my opinion, because, like, Ian Fleming wrote 14 novels. Now, about halfway through the 14 novels, that's when Hollywood showed up and was like, we got to make movies on these. Hollywood only bought the rights to the Ian Fleming novels. So eventually, because there's been 25 Bond films, there's only been 14 books. They started just making up their own material and being like based on Ian Fleming's Bond.
Yep.
But it was a movie per book at first?
At first it was, yes. Yeah.
So there are 14 books that have corresponding movies.
Yes. And some of the movies only take the title and have nothing to do with the book.
And then you have stuff like Quantum of Solace that I think the title comes from a short story, right?
Yes, but it has nothing to do with the short story. Whereas, like, basically the early Bond films, the Sean Connery and a couple of the Roger Moores are almost one-for-one book-to-movie adaptations. Yeah. And then later on, for some of the Bond books that the Broccoli, they're produced by Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, but the original rights were owned by her father, the Broccoli's. They basically just started stealing titles or stealing, like, catchphrases and being like, A View to a Kill, that's a movie. Let's just do it. He says it once in a novel sometime.
I mean, it's a good name. Let's be honest. It's a good name. It's a good name. It's a good name. But listen, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I'm sorry. We're getting too down. This is what happens when I almost called him Bob Bond. Bob Bond. That's James's brother.
That's a spinoff. He's not as successful.
TJ, when you introduced this and you said today we're talking about bonds, it took everything inside me to not be like, and stocks.
Well, listen, in the chat, Leonard Kim says bonds. Now you got to go into crypto NFT game. I will not.
Yeah.
I will not, Leonard Kim.
Leonard Kim.
So, obviously, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, thank you for joining us. Please please give us 5 stars if you're listening to us on iTunes. It really helps. Or it's what is it, Apple Podcasts now. Please, it's very helpful. If you're listening to this on Spotify every week, we ask you a question which you can answer on Spotify, which I will read here last week. The question was, who is the grossest Marvel villain? Ray Rafael Alvarez said Toad from X-Men is pretty nasty. Dude is just slapping people and grabbing handles with his tongue. He's the first to go once COVID hits Earth 616. Xavier Thomas says this is a deep cut. Nomak from Blade 2. Just think about that slimy, moist death mouth opening up and going in for a smooch. Also, the autopsy scene in that movie is still one of the grossest things ever. John Olmsted is a big boy myself, and knowing how gross I can feel, I'm going to go with Blob. Plus, I think the ultimate version eats Ant-Man. I totally agree with a Blob being gross, especially the version that eats Ant-Man. John, it sounds like you're being too hard on yourself. I'm just going to throw that out there. You should feel good about yourself. Michael Wysong gives what I think is probably the definitive answer, and I should have brought up last week, is Mojo, the X-Men villain. And that, I think, is the correct response to who is the gross, just on every level, who is the grossest Marvel villain. It's hard to beat Mojo. Jason, do you have, like, off the top of your head, I didn't even tell you that I was going to read these real quick. Do you have, like, a gross Marvel villain, like, right off the dome?
Oh, villain. Oh, I have a gross hero.
Go for it.
Do you guys know the X-Men character Maggot?
Oh, yeah, I do. Oh,
Is
yeah.
he anything like what he sounds like?
Yes,
well,
sort of.
He has these two, like, worm creatures that can eat and process anything, and then they eventually reveal that they were actually his large and small intestines.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and you were like, ooh, you just made this character very gross. Although I've always said that if I ever get the X-Men comic book titles or a chance to write an X-Men comic book, I would revamp Maggot and make him cool.
Yeah, I think there's it's weird. There's some weird potential in Maggot, and I also like. I want to say, when did Maggot show up? Was it early 2000s, late 90s?
It's like mid 2000s.
Mid 2000s, but it was pre Grant Morrison run, right?
Yes, yeah.
It was interesting that, like, there was gross X-Men where it was clear that, like, they're just kind of like running out of ideas, and then Grant Morrison came along and he's like, but honestly, there'd be a lot of gross X-Men. If you're getting random mutations, there'd be a lot of gross X-Men.
Well, I always heard the story, and this might be apocryphal as well, that the only reason, like, Maggot was created was because in the 90s they were going crazy with the X-Men action figures. They were making so many of them. And they were just immediately scooping characters out of the comic books. And the writers started challenging themselves to who could make the weirdest or strangest character that would still be made into an action figure.
Did it work?
That was verbalized out loud, do you think?
I've heard that in a couple interviews. Now, I don't think they ever made a Maggot action figure.
They beat the system.
I think that's the one that broke it.
That's the one that broke this. They're like, this is the one. This is a bridge too far. I would be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean... Well,
Toy Biz was later. Like, this is way too far.
This is way too far. I'm surprised with, like, all the Marvel Legends. I mean, I think we got, like, an armadillo Build-A-Figure, so I would be surprised if they didn't get to Maggot at some point. Also, of course, if you want to listen to the full 2-hour discussion of the show, if you want to watch it live, if you want to ask questions for the show, you can do all of that at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. And we are now going to go into what we are into this week. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick ad break. All right, now back to the show. Jason, what are you into this week?
I mean, this is probably my most boring answer of the entire podcast. I'm into Squid Games. I finished Squid Games this week. Or Squid Game.
I'm so excited. Just game. Just one game.
I keep calling it Squid Games because I'm saying that's what they're going to call season 2.
Why do I keep doing that? Squid Game is hard to say.
I think it's the S. I think it's the semblance of the S. Yeah, Squid Game. I mean, I watched it only because everybody was talking about it, and within the first 10 minutes of the first episode, I thought the character writing and work was so strong that, yes, we've seen all that stuff in Battle Royale and all these other places and Hunger Games and whatnot, but I think Squid Game beat them all with the amazing character work. That show does an amazing job of making you care about every single character, even the scumbags and the murderers that you meet on that show. Like, you actually care, and they are fully realized people. And yeah, it's cool that all these people are in these weird games with the PlayStation symbols across their face. But it's I don't know. I was blown away with it. I had not been that excited to, like, watch another episode in a long, probably since HBO's Watchmen.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I actually haven't watched this yet, but it was something Roxy wanted to discuss later, and it blows my. This feels like one of those things that because it's a Korean show, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This feels like one of those things that like I would have checked out because I heard it on the grapevine, and I'd have to convince everybody to go watch it. And it blows my mind that it is just taken off. Like everybody's watched it, everybody knows about it, and I'm actually behind the curve. Roxy, what were your thoughts on Squid Game?
So 2 days ago, I had seen 0 of Squid Game, and everybody out there was like, you have to watch, you have to watch. And then by yesterday morning, I had finished Squid Game. So there are 9 episodes. They're each an hour, and I did not go to sleep 2 nights ago because I stayed up and watched the entire thing. I just couldn't stop. It was so interesting and unique and twists, but not for the sake of like, oh, there's another twist. Just that made sense. And it like spoke to my little competition loving heart, which, you know, I love things like Big Brother and whatever. But then at the same time, it then also spoke like it was like Parasite and Big Brother and Hunger Games boned and had a kid. It was so good. It was so good.
I'm really excited to check it out. I've heard really incredible things. It definitely sounds like something up my alley, and it makes me really happy that it is doing so well. Like Netflix could have had no idea that like this would blow up the way it has, right?
Well, I have a theory about this because this is actually a Netflix co-production.
Oh dang. Okay.
Netflix paid for half of this show. I forget the director, the amazing writer. I should know his name, but he's fantastic. He kind of got a blank check from Netflix.
Dang.
And they were like, well, what do you want to make next? And apparently he'd been trying to get this script produced for 10 years. And so he was like, I want to do Squid Game. And
I saw this on everybody's Instagram story. Everybody was like, don't give up on your dreams.
Yeah. But that's a true story. Like he'd apparently been trying to make this thing for like 10 years. And so good for him. So I also like have seen a couple of my friends in marketing talk about that. Apparently this was like the most front paged Netflix thing ever. Like Netflix like made sure everybody saw this when you came up. And if you've seen the trailer of Squid Game, it's very eye-catching.
Yeah.
Why do you think that Netflix made everybody see this? Like, I wouldn't watch this and necessarily think that people would love this.
I think they wanted to get their money back. I mean, I also it paid off. I think it was a gamble. Like they were definitely a gamble, but it's going to be the most watched thing on Netflix of all time.
I know. It definitely paid off. I just think that somebody was really smart over there because I don't know that I necessarily would have put all of my eggs in this basket because it's so unique and weird.
Well, I don't know. Like, you know, sorry to interrupt you, Roxy. I would say that like if I was in marketing over there and I saw this show, I would champion the hell out of it because I'd be like, this is the next Lost. This is going to blow up if people see it.
Yeah.
So whoever did that, good for them.
Well, I think it's also a good sign about the way, like you look at the way K-pop has kind of blown up internationally. I think this is a good sign for more international. You know, the U.S. kind of like it felt like they cornered the market on global productions, and I think it's cool that productions from other places are also getting in the game. But it is also an example of when you talk about the marketing angle of it. It is interesting how Netflix and like other companies like Marvel, like the MCU, are able to control it's the most popular thing because you have the marketing apparatus to make it the most.
Yeah.
It sounds like Squid Game, it gets there off of the merit of its own success, but there are a lot of things where it's like, well, you can just throw the marketing dollars at it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a 1-2 punch. Like I have seen so many films and television shows, and I bet you all three of us could name shows that we were like, this is so good, but nobody watched it. I said that, I think DJ to you for years about The Expanse.
Yeah. Yeah, The Expanse is amazing, and obviously somebody's watching because it's on Amazon, but like not enough people.
Not enough people are watching that show, and you're like, this is probably one of the most brilliant shows on television, and nobody's watching it. No. And it just goes to show you that like Squid Game's the same way. Like if the marketing is there, but like the content is bad, then like it won't succeed. But if it's a 1-2 punch, like boom, here we go. Look at this Squid Game.
So obviously, both of you have watched the whole first season.
Yeah.
Without spoiling it for me, is this a limited series? Is there going to be a season 2? Is it set up for a season 2?
I feel as if there's no way there's not going to be a season 2 after this season. Jason?
I agree just because of the success, but I'm going to say this, and I'd love to hear your answer to this, Roxy. I don't want there to be a season 2. I want it to be just like HBO Watchmen, but I know because this thing was huge, they're going to make a season 2.
I think that with the final episode, there are things that I would like to see in a season 2. I don't know that we needed this final episode, not the first half of the final episode, but the back half of the final episode, if there wasn't going to be a season 2. I think we could have ended it a little earlier if we weren't going to have a season 2. DJ, I don't want to spoil anything for you because I know you're actually going to watch this one and you're really going to like it. So that's the only thing I can really say. But I do think that when you're a company and you care about your bottom line, which all companies do, and you have a success like this, and it's possible to do a second season, and you're not Lindelof, so you're gonna do that. I think that unlike Watchmen, I think where they were like, no, this is perfect and we're gonna keep it like this. I think Squid Game will probably have a season 2, and then probably a season 3, and then probably a season 4, and then maybe a season 5.
That's a great comparison, Roxy. I would say that, DJs, to give you an idea, the ending of Squid Game is kind of like HBO Watchmen, where it's like, yeah, you could continue that story. Like there is something there, but like, I guess for my preference, I'm kind of like, I don't want them to, because I know what I got is so good that I don't want to I don't want to muddy the waters.
You don't want to, what is it, a Big Little Lies season 2? Is that a reference to a show that I didn't watch, but I feel like the season 2 was forced and didn't work?
Love that show. Love season 2. Don't know why everybody was up in arms over it.
Am I talking about the right show, Roxy?
You are talking about the right show, but you're also talking to somebody who's on season 11 of The Walking Dead and loving every second of it still. So let me live.
Oh boy.
You know, I think this is loyalty, the embodiment of loyalty. Who am I loyal to? Television. Thank you. Next question.
Well, a show you're not loyal to, transition, is What If? Marvel's What If.
That is true. I'm not loyal to this show.
Is What If? We just got episode 9. For some reason, I thought there were going to be 10 episodes. Apparently, there were meant to be 10 episodes, but we'll talk about that in a second. Episode 9, which is the finale. And Jason, we talked a little bit about early before we started that you are caught up on the show, and to catch you up on my thoughts, because I've been talking about it every week.
Sure.
I've loved it. Like episode 1, I thought was fine. A little bit felt like a clip show. Episodes 2 and 3 sold on the premise, loved it. And then once Party Thor showed up, and then once New Ultron started showing up, and things started becoming more serialized, I was like, no, this isn't what I signed up for. That said, I actually like this episode. This is the episode where the watcher.
DJ, you are playing with my emotions with this show. I cannot keep up with how you feel.
Well, listen, I think a lot of one of the things I liked about What If and the promise of it is by this anthology nature, the anthology narrative allowed an opportunity for them to do Marvel stories that actually had stakes. Like when somebody goes to Doctor Strange and they're like, hey, if you keep doing this, you're going to destroy reality. He could just destroy reality. It's not like when you're watching Doctor Strange movie, it's like, well, everything's got to be fine because I know Shang-Chi's coming out next week. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, Spider-Man is next month.
Yeah, so it's like, I know things are going to be fine. Yeah. And once they raise the stakes to like, the multiverse is going to be destroyed, it's like, well, now I know things are going to be fine. That said, this is an example, I guess, of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Seeing all these characters we've seen episode to episode actually interact, even though it was for a brief amount of time, and work together. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's still that little like what a dopamine hit when this happens. So like, I wish Marvel would be less formulaic, but also I guess I don't. Apparently, I don't know. So is it one of my favorite episodes? I think episodes 2 and 3 are probably still my favorite of the show so far. That said, I liked it. Jason, what did you think of this?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was okay. I mean, it has the inherent problem of an anthology show where, you know, it's always going to be a coin toss, which every episode, which is fine. And I agree with you. Like, I thought some episodes were strong. I mean, my favorite episode was the Doctor Strange episode, like by a million miles.
Well, and I gotta say, in the MCU, not talking about Doctor Strange in the comics, in the MCU, quote unquote, evil or bad or dark Doctor Strange, infinitely more interesting than standard issue Doctor Strange. Like all the creatures he's ingested in the time, every once in a while when he uses his abilities, the different creatures will come out, and he's obviously much more conflicted. It's like, I'm really interested in this Doctor Strange. I hope we see more of him, I guess.
I don't know. I disagree with that because I like the MCU Doctor Strange quite a bit. It's fine. It's all good. It's weird to me because DJ, I thought you did nail it. I like that you could have the stakes of like blowing apart the multiverse and who cares. I guess my whole thing is, and this might be the reason why I was very is okay with it, is because I just don't like the MCU's version of Ultron.
Yeah,
I don't like James Spader Ultron, and I didn't like the What If doing an impression of James Spader doing Ultron.
Yeah, we talked about this last week with Sal, where it's like the only thing that made kind of Ultron sort of work in Age of Ultron was James Spader, and so when you have like a bad James Spader impression, it's like,
yeah.
Wait, do we have Ultron again this week?
Yes, he's our big bad. He was our big bad of the What If.
He's the season villain.
Yes.
Oh, I don't. This is why. Nope, you're not gonna get Roxy. Nope.
So anyway, Jason,
I'm not Ultron in the MCU person either. Jason, I feel you.
Yeah. So you were saying about Ultron, Jason.
Well, I was saying that it's interesting that it was this case, and this is inherent in the Marvel universe. They have a villain problem.
Mm-hmm.
The heroes are so much more compelling than any of the villains. And it's so funny because it's like, I feel like DC's the opposite. Like where like in DC, it's like the villains are more interesting than the heroes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I liked the idea of them all kind of teaming up but the ultimate threat being Ultron, I kind of was like a letdown. I kind of felt like seeing another person gather in Infinity Stones was a movie I'd already seen before.
Yes.
But the thing of like teaming up all these alternate characters from alternate realities and alternate timelines, that was interesting to me. And it was so interesting enough that I was like, this could have been a movie, guys. You could have made this a movie and I would have been totally in. And in fact, now I kind of wish you had made it.
Why would you have liked it more if it was a movie?
Because some of the animation stuff, I thought some of the animation style was not up to, I would say, the $1 billion, billion Marvel standards.
So you mean a live action movie?
Yes, that's what I would say. I would want to see, like, Haley Atwell as Captain Carter would, I think, sell $1 billion.
I agree.
And the fact that they didn't make an Agent Carter movie, I'm still angry about. That they were like, yeah, put it off on ABC television. Forget about it.
It was a good show, though. I agree with you, but it was a good show.
Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah. Weirdly, I found like all of the Disney Plus shows to be about the same, where I'm like, I get excited about them. There's an interesting idea. Okay. Oh, they're going to do something great. And then the final episode, I always feel is a letdown.
What's your favorite one?
Of the What If anthology? Or of the shows?
No. He said you said you were just talking about all of the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah.
Your favorite one?
Actually, WandaVision is my favorite of all of them because it took chances. Mm-hmm. And I felt the place that it didn't take chances was the finale when it turned into a Marvel movie of just two people fighting.
Yeah, Roxy and I have talked about this a lot because we've been talking about all the shows where it's interesting how obviously, when it's a show, it's like the last episode, but it's kind of true of the movies as well. Once you get to that third act, that it's like, I thought Shang-Chi really suffered from this. Black Widow suffered from this. It's like you get to the third act and it's like, it just doesn't coalesce. And of course, the old saying is that if you have an Act 3 problem, what you actually have is an Act 1 problem. Yeah. And I think in the Marvel instance, it's more this. I feel like they made Iron Man, and Iron Man was infamous for having. They finished the script as they were shooting. And I think they took a lot of good lessons from Iron Man, and they were like, well, we can just do this. Well, we can just like figure it out as we go. And it's like, but at this point, especially now that you have movies and TV shows and multiverse, and it's like, I don't think that you can either each entity needs to be more discrete from the other ones, or you need to have a bigger game plan, because this episode actually suffers from. So in Loki, it was a major plot point in the first episode that outside of their universes, the Infinity Stones are basically paperweights. And then in the last episode of What If, Ultron has the Infinity Stones, breaks through his reality, they work fine, goes into other realities, they work fine, which seems to contradict what we saw in Loki. Then in this episode, a version of Gamora that we've never seen before. The speculation is that she was part of it's supposed to be a 10th episode.
She was a deleted episode,
which I hope we get in maybe season 2, just to circle back and like, hey, here's what was going on there.
Why did they delete her episode?
COVID, apparently. COVID production
stuff. They ran out of money, apparently.
But apparently in her universe, she created a machine that destroys Infinity Stones, which they use on Ultron. But twist, it only works on the Infinity Stones in her reality. It's like, time out. Like, what is the either that doesn't make any. We literally just the episode before we established that it doesn't. Infinity Stones apparently can work in any reality. Therefore, your machine should work just fine, which is only a problem, I think, because they're so hell bent on everything being as connected as it is. It's less like. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, Jason. It is less like picking up, like if I decide, like right now for Marvel, I think I'm picking up Moon Knight and Thor, and they're completely unrelated. It's less like that and more like the MCU runs more like the current X-Men run, where like literally every comic in it, whether it's X-Force or whether it's X-Men or whether it's Inferno, is all part of the exact same story. And so if that doesn't work, if things start falling apart. And so it's like you either need to let things be more standalone, or you need to have a better game plan, because I think that it's starting to buckle under the pressure.
I agree with you. And it's funny, go back to like one of your other points, you're talking about Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
And Iron Man 1 is actually still one of my favorite MCU movies.
Agreed.
And they didn't have a script, but they had an outline. And so all the scenes were improv, so they have this energy to them. But the thing that Iron Man 1 has that they lost later on, it kills that third act problem you were talking about, is that Iron Man 1, you can tell that they were like, all right, we have a plan, but Iron Man could bomb. Mm-hmm. And Incredible Hulk's coming out later this summer, and yeah, we're going to be in it, but this could all bomb. So if this is the only Iron Man movie we ever make, let's go for broke. Let's end the movie, I'm Iron Man. Yeah. Destroy the secret identity. Which, when I saw it in theaters, knocked my socks off. You're like, whoa, holy cow. Because as soon as you say that, you're like, well, then what the hell is Iron Man 2?
Yeah.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
And neither did they.
And neither did they. And they were like, let's have a race in Monte Carlo. And everybody's like, no, we don't want to race in Monte Carlo. Anyways, and it's the MCU movie to me that like completely like has what you're talking about, this whole third act problem where it's just like it's nothing but setting up the next thing, which I thought Loki season 1 was all about. Like the ending of Loki season 1 was like we got to tell you about Ant-Man 3, forget Loki, you know. But Captain America Civil War has like fantastic movie until the last act, and the last act is all like, we're not even going to show you Captain America breaking these people out of prison. We're not even going to show you what Tony Stark is doing next. Forget it. You're going to watch the next movie. We don't care. Like, that's literally the ending. Like, they show us a montage and it fades. And you're like, you didn't give me an ending. You just faded to the credits, you know?
Well, the one thing I'll give Civil War, though, is I do like that the one thing it subverts with the more Marvel formula is it sets up the like, if these super soldiers get out, world-ending crisis. And I think the movie was smart enough to know, like, nah, fuck that. This movie's about Captain America and Iron Man beating the shit out of each other.
And you're correct. And it's funny because, like, the thing we love about these Marvel movies, and it's now because we're 22, 23, how many down the road we are?
Bunch in.
We like that they're comic books, right? Like they have made them like comic books, and they're all tied together. But the problem is that comic books come out monthly, and these movies come out 2-3 times a year if we're lucky.
Yeah.
So you can only sustain the anticipation, the excitement for so long before people just like, I don't care. Whereas like with comic books, every month you're getting a dose. Every month. So like you don't have to wait too long for that cliffhanger, or you don't have to wait too long for all the Hickman X-Men titles to like pay off the thing they just set up. Yeah. Because every 30 days I'm getting the next answer.
Yeah. And it's also challenging too, because I mean, I think we've seen a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like a test subject in, all of us covered or watched the CW superhero shows, and then Infinity Crisis happened, and we
pat yourself on the back, everyone.
Yeah, pat ourselves on the back, and then we all, I feel like it's safe to say, all of us basically used Infinity Crisis as an excuse to be like, well, I guess I'm going to tap out now.
You mean Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Crisis on Infinite Earths. Thank you. I mixed up my crises.
There's so many Infinite Crises.
You're so many crises.
You got all the right words.
They're all in there. It's in there.
The word jumble.
And so, and because at a certain point it becomes, granted, those were like 20 episodes a year, 5 shows, whatever. But I feel like Marvel, despite its incredible popularity, if it doesn't start thinking more about the way its formula works, it's becoming the fact that your standalone anthology show also connects to everything. Like at a certain point, it's going to be impenetrable for anybody that didn't participate in it to get involved, and people are going to fall off because it's like if you got to watch all the things like, and I think all it would take is something like Eternals bombing or something that people would be like, well, maybe I don't need to check out.
Everything.
Yeah, and
look, the late great Stan Lee always said that every comic book is someone's first comic book.
Yeah,
and so he was like, you got to write it to where it's like it'll please the person that just picked it up and the person that has been the fan for years. And I think Marvel is forgetting that lesson where it's like, you got to make each of these movies beyond like the sequels. Like I'll give you like Iron Man 2 or Iron Man 3 connecting. Look, that's an agreement that we all understand. Yeah. But I'm talking about like, there's certain movies where it's like, if I have to watch every Disney Plus show to understand the brand new movie that's coming out, like you've lost me.
Right. Yeah. I'm out. If with Doctor Strange 2, it's not just watch Doctor Strange 1. Like, no, you've got to watch Doctor Strange 1, Infinity War, Endgame, WandaVision. It's like at a certain point, like I assume that movie's going to be fine. Probably Spider-Man No Way Home. I think Doctor Strange 2 is going to be fine. Yeah. I just think a couple years from now, 5 years from now, you know what I mean? Like it's going to start, fatigue is going to start setting in.
I agree. I agree.
So let's talk about a franchise that fatigue has not set in. We're going to talk about Bond. But before we do that, we're going to take another quick little ad break. All right, everybody, welcome back. Now we're going to dive into James Bond. This week, as of this recording, is the week that No Time to Die is coming out. None of us have seen it yet, so no spoilers. In the chat, whatever. No spoilers. You won't be getting spoilers. We won't be spoiling it for each other. But I thought this was a good opportunity because we all know that this is Daniel Craig's last Bond movie. Yes, we have said that every Daniel Craig Bond movie since I think Quantum of Solace, but this is officially the last Daniel Craig Bond movie. So we know there's going to be a relaunch of some sort, a new Bond, a new direction. And I thought this was a good opportunity to discuss, Jason's a big Bond fan. Discuss where Bond could go in the future to possibly make it, keep it viable, keep people interested. Because Roxy, you've never seen a Bond.
I saw one Bond.
Which one Bond did you watch?
I saw GoldenEye because I played the video game growing up. I actually was a gamer. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that Bond, but I didn't see that Bond until about 3-4 years ago.
Yes.
So it took me a long time. That was the one I started with. I hear that was a silly move, just because it was that weird to start, but it was.
I think GoldenEye is a solid. GoldenEye, I think, especially of the Pierce Brosnan era, I think GoldenEye is a solid entry.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. I watched the movie and was like, that was fine. And then I never watched another Bond movie again. So clearly it wasn't that impactful for me. I'm not one of those people who's like, I don't watch Bond movies because there is no because. I just haven't seen them. Mm-hmm. Just haven't seen them.
Well, I do think, and Jason and I were talking about a little bit about this earlier, that you were saying Ashley had never, until you recently did a rewatch, had never seen a Bond movie. My wife has never seen a Bond movie. Mm-hmm. Roxy, we were originally talking about possibly having the World Girls on, and they'd never seen a Bond movie. And you might be noticing a pattern at this point. And so, again, it's just this idea of, where could Bond go? What could Bond do that how does it need to change? Because I think that's one of the things that have made the franchise so enduring. I think this is Bond 25. Am I right, Jason?
This is the 25th Bond film.
After decades and decades. So yep. Clearly it's doing some stuff right. But one of the things it does well is it changes, it evolves, it adapts, similar to very different properties, but similar to Doctor Who, where like it can pivot, it can change, and that's what keeps it fresh. So Jason, as a longtime Bond fan, what would you like to see with Bond 26 or going forward that you think would revitalize the franchise?
Well, they actually made some really good steps in the Daniel Craig era.
Yeah.
Because and Roxy, this would be the movie that I would tell you to watch, and I've heard from many people that this is their first Bond film, and it's the perfect one to get into, is Casino Royale.
Great.
Which is Daniel Craig's first Bond film, is a reset of the entire franchise. It is Bond becoming the 007.
Yeah.
So Daniel Craig is our current Bond, and Casino Royale was his first movie, which was like 5 movies ago or something.
Yes.
Okay. And early 2000s, or when are we talking?
2006.
Yeah, it was post Dark Knight, right? Oh no, it was post Batman Begins. It was right
post Batman Begins. They were inspired by Batman Begins, and they were also inspired by the Bourne movies.
Yes,
and so they revamped the franchise.
Things. Maybe that's
well, Casino Royale is, without a doubt, beyond being a Bond film, is just a freaking good movie.
Agreed.
It is like a solid movie, and it's arguable it might be the best film of all 25.
I have not watched all 25. That is my inclination. I would also argue that it is the best of, even though Skyfall, I really like Skyfall, I think it's the best of the Daniel Craig Bonds.
I agree. So like that is, to me, like, not only because it's like a reset of the franchise, but like it is just such a solid film in every aspect. And one of the changes they made it in that is because see, the love of the Bond franchise is one, it is a male dream fantasy. And the reason why that is because Ian Fleming was an intelligence officer in World War II. His cousin, Christopher Lee, yes, that Christopher Lee, Saruman, was a secret agent during World War II. And there have been many stipulations that Ian Fleming was writing about all the crazy adventures he thought his cousin had. And all these stories that his cousin had told him, and probably
did have. If you've never, anybody that doesn't know, take some time just to see all the shenanigans Christopher Lee has gotten up to in his life. It's a very storied life.
So the franchise started in this.
What is the premise of Casino Royale or like Bond movie? It's a spy movie about a guy who's like, there's something to do with a Bond girl, and he has to like rescue somebody, or what is the premise of a Bond movie?
Bond movies are spy movies.
Yes, they are very loose spy movies because they're very much, you have to look at the idea like it is a male fantasy.
Yeah.
It is very much like that being a spy is going to like gala events, honeypotting the Baron's wife and getting the missile codes, which is actually not what spycraft is at all. Yeah. A lot of spycraft is just like watching people's mail and following people.
Yeah, it's a lot of work and incredibly stressful. Like it's like the worst of all the work.
It's detail oriented, but so most of the Bond films is that because he's an MI6 agent. Which is the British intelligence agency. It's actually MI5, but they've made it MI6.
That's like the CIA?
It's the British CIA,
yeah.
Yes. Okay. So he is an agent of MI6, and generally they learn of a terrorist event or a bad guy out in the world, and they send Bond out on a mission to go get the guy. Basically, to be honest with you, and this is this is something the franchise forgot for a while, Bond is a very fancy assassin.
Yes.
Most of his missions they're like, hey, Goldfinger, go kill him.
Yeah, and I think that's something that the Daniel Craig movies, especially Casino Royale, were really smart to put that in the forefront. Like he's basically a glorified thug, essentially. And
he is a glorified thug.
Yeah. And they make that clear because it's like he's blowing stuff up. He's not subtle. That's not the point of Bond movies. That's not why any of us go see them. And so it's good that those movies were like, the spy stuff is the low key.
And in the middle of the franchise, the Roger Moore movies and the Pierce Brosnan movies kind of forgot that, and they kind of made him a fancy, sexy gentleman. Like they leaned into like, oh no, Bond is gadgets, who he beds, who he sleeps with, and all the puns. And when you go back to the Sean Connery Bonds, they are, and these are the ones that are closer to the novels, although there are changes. He does do that. Like he does sleep with women and he does say puns, but he's a mean dude. He's a guy that like will just shoot you if he gets the chance. And that's what they brought back with Daniel Craig. But the change they made in Casino Royale is that Connery's Bond doesn't have a heart. He is heartless, which is what makes him a good killer. Daniel Craig's Bond has a heart, and that's why they made a romance in the first Casino Royale, which I think actually humanized James Bond more than they ever intended. So to answer your question in a long way, Roxy, Casino Royale is basically MI6 learns that this criminal, Lashif, who is a terrorist, has like lost all his money basically on the stock market. And to survive said crash, he is putting up I think it's like a $150 million poker game in Montenegro. And so they have decided to send 007 into the game to basically make sure that he doesn't win all the money.
Okay.
So that this guy doesn't get his money back. And then it's all the complications and all like the woman he falls in love with, Vesper Lind, is basically the civilian banker who stakes MI6 in the game, who gives him the millions of dollars in the game. And of course it creates all the kinds of conflict because Bond is like, well, I'm just going to bluff my way to the top. And Vesper's like, but that's $50 million, you idiot man, you know?
Yeah. Also, it's worth pointing
really
out.
good at things too. Like, is he just like, he's just can do poker and can do all the things?
Yeah. Casino Royale was big when Texas Hold'em was big. That was when Texas Hold'em was a thing.
In the book, it's Baccarat, which is not a very well played game in America. So they made it Texas Hold'em. No, so Bond is good. That's the thing about Bond is that, and that's why they describe him as Bond is a bulldozer or a blunt instrument. Yeah. Because he will figure out a solution no matter what. He will not fail. He is the secret agent who will die 17 times over as long as Britain is saved.
Yeah. And so the other good thing about Casino Royale is it is the first blockbuster that really put Mads Mikkelsen and Ava Green into like the popular consciousness. And so it will always have my heart for that alone, because both of them are really excellent in the movie and I really like those actors a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like Ava Green so much. Yes. I like Mads Mikkelsen too, but I really like Ava Green.
Ava Green's is great in that movie.
Yeah,
she's so fantastic. So did she have an actual role? Like I only ask that because as somebody who hasn't seen the movies, I always hear like the girls don't have real roles or whatever it is.
Yeah,
she's an actual character. In it.
Yeah, because they set her up as she is in this, because the more than any other Bond movie, Casino Royale is basically a reboot. The other Bond movies, and Jason, you correct me if I'm wrong, are loosely, there's a loose continuity, especially from Bond to Bond, like Sean Connery to Roger Moore to, you know. But this was a kind of a hard reboot, and so this is his only, I mean, they tried to do this differently in Spectre, but she was kind of like his only real love. And so she's probably one of, if not the most important figure outside of Bond in the Craig era, because her influence, there's ramifications all the way up to, I'm going to assume, even No Time to Die.
In the books, Vesper Lynd is considered to be Bond's first love. And I think correctly, when they rebooted this franchise, they did the same thing. Like Vesper, she is very important to James. Yeah. And she, in my opinion, is the best Bond girl that Daniel Craig has had. She's the best female character. And now I haven't, again, No Time to Die might change my mind. Yeah. But so far, I think she's the best. She has the best role. She's the best actress. And there are other good ones in Daniel Craig's run too.
In the way that there's multiple Bonds, then there are multiple Vesper Lynds.
So far in the movie franchise, no, there's only one. Because here's the weird, and this is what I told you about the Bond franchise is so weird, because there is a continuity and there's not.
Yeah.
And it's basically up to you to decide whether are all these movies connected or are they not? Because there's the big fan theory that this is one guy that's going through all these movies. There's the other fan theory that it's a code name.
Yeah, that these guys are different. That James, not only is 007 a code, but James Bond is a code name.
James Bond is a code name. That's not their real names.
I got to be honest with you, that theory is the only way I can make sense of certain things in Skyfall, because Skyfall calls back to the other movies, even though like Daniel Craig's Bond should be a hard reboot, and it's like, wait a second, what? Because they pull out, it's the DB5 that they pull out, right? And it's like,
yeah,
they do either it's supposed to be like an in joke, but in some ways it feels like they're implying that like Goldfinger happened, and it's like, what?
And also in Skyfall, they go to his childhood home.
Yeah.
And so they show you his parents' graves, and his parents' last names are Bond. And so you're like, oh, this is the way I look at it. I look at it as from Dr. No, which is Sean Connery's first film, the first James Bond film, to License to Kill, which is the same guy. Mm-hmm. So Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, and Timothy Dalton are all the same guy. Then I think when Pierce Brosnan starts, we're in a brand new franchise, because they don't really reference the old movies. They don't really talk about different stuff. So like I feel he's his own franchise. And then I think when Daniel Craig restarted, it's another reboot. So like that's kind of the way I look at it as. I don't see them all as one guy. Now, I have seen some fans do some interesting putting Daniel Craig's movies into the timeline of where they think they happen. But for me, I'm a big fan of they're not connected. Don't connect any of them.
Yeah.
They're all separate, with the exception of the Daniel Craig movies.
Well, and even then, the Daniel Craig movies, other than Quantum of Solace, is a pretty. I mean, well, I guess they tried to tie it all together with Spectre. So yeah, that's true. But
I've heard that No Time to Die connects quite a bit to Spectre.
So other than the Daniel Craig movies, and I think one of the things that has helped Bond last so much is that the continuity does, even between Sean Connery movies and stuff like that. Like, how many Blofelds did we have? Like 3 or 4 different
There's
Blofelds.
Like 4 Blofelds.
Yeah. And so and Roxy Blofeld is sort of like Bond's big bad, to the degree that he has one.
Blofeld,
yeah, it was a different time. And I think that's something that the Marvel movies are not only could learn from, but are uniquely suited to benefit from, since they have so many different characters. If they allowed, like, listen, Shang-Chi can just be his own thing. He doesn't need to be connected to everything. Like, he's part of the same world. If he gets to be in an Avengers movie, great, but he can just be his own thing. I think that's what's helped Bond last so long.
Yes.
And what could help other franchises as well. That the continuity matters-ish.
Well, yeah, but that's the other thing that's allowed Bond to survive, is that there's a lot of variety. Even though these are spy movies, like, some of them are very serious, some of them are very funny, some of them are very of the times. Like, that's the other thing that's allowed Bond to survive, is that even in the 60s, and they've kept this up, Bond has sort of always been aware of the times and the culture, and it's highlighted that. Thunderball in 1965 was like one of the first movies to shoot all these underwater sequences. So there's like the entire climax of the movie is underwater. It makes the movie very boring to modern standards, but at the time people were like, what the hell is this? I've never seen this before. Casino Royale has a major action sequence that is all about parkour.
Yeah. It's incredible.
It is parkouring all over this giant skyscraper. And parkour, remember, 2006 was very big at the time.
Yeah.
There's another Bond movie that's all about that. They do like surfing. They're all about surfing. So like Bond has always been like kind of aware of the times. And I think that has allowed it to adapt and change as well.
The other cool thing that I just want to touch on, the part of that parkour sequence, is also what every good action sequence should do, is it's also character driven. That scene tells you a lot about Daniel Craig's Bond and the way that he has to resolve, because he's not as skilled as the person he's chasing. So the solutions he comes up with tells you a lot about his Bond in a very short amount of time. So with all that in mind, we do have some Discord questions that I do want to get to. With all that in mind, is there one thing, if you had to pick like one thing you'd like to see them speaking of like being in touch with the times, something that you think would help elevate or make the next Bond relevant?
Well, one, I have this pitch out there that everybody keeps talking about Idris Elba as Bond.
Yes.
And so to me, I think it would be completely foolish if the Broccolis and MGM don't make at least one Idris Elba James Bond movie, because it would make $1 billion. I know he's a little bit older. I think he's the same age or older than Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
So do one, make your $1 billion at a Bond movie, and that way you get to check it off. We also have another Bond that was only in one movie. So it's George Lazenby.
Yeah.
And Timothy Dalton was only in 2. So that's not unheard of. I honestly think I would turn the dial back a little bit from Daniel Craig. The Daniel Craig movies are very serious and they're very dramatic. And I would turn the dial just a hair back to make them a little bit more humorous, to make them a little bit more fun. Because I think they've lost the fun a little bit. Like everything is like, the world is crumbling down, the terrorists are around, and I'm so dour.
Yeah.
And even Connery, for being a very serious Bond, would have fun sometimes. And I actually think they should take a little bit of inspiration from Kingsman and go back to being a little bit cooler.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I want the franchise to do that. But the problem now is that the solution is that to make Bond contemporary in our modern world, he has to start taking on some governments, and he has to start taking on like giant corporations.
Yeah.
Because like, as we all know, they're the true enemies right now.
Yeah. The Cold War stuff isn't going to cut it anymore.
No, the Cold War. So you either have to start doing that to make him still relevant, or you have to like bop him back to the period and make him a 1960s period.
There's merit in that. I didn't think about that until just now. It's like, oh, that actually could be pretty cool.
Yeah. to send Bond back to where he's fighting the USSR and he's in the 60s.
So, Roxy, as somebody who's only seen one Bond movie, is there something they could do that would make you be like, okay, I'm on board with this, whatever this next Bond is?
I don't know what it is that makes me so not on board, because like I love the Bourne movies and I love John Wick and I'm just naming things that without having seen Bonds feel like they would be in a similar category.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know, because anytime somebody says like Bond should be a woman, I don't know that would make me start watching Bond.
Yeah.
I don't think that's why I'm not watching. So I guess if people were like, this is the greatest movie ever, maybe I would go see it. But I feel very far behind, kind of like when you guys were talking about the comic book movies, like, and how it's, if you don't watch Doctor Strange 1 and then also all of the Spider-Man movie and then Infinity and then Endgame, whatever, then you can't see the next movie. Yeah. And if you have to watch all the TV shows, I'm caught up on all of that. So you can just keep doing those things. But with Bond, I'm always just like, ugh. So maybe the next hard reboot, I would just watch it. Yeah, and hope that it was okay.
And I think Jason,
Idris would help. He's very good looking.
And I just looked it up. Daniel Craig is 53. Idris Elba is 49, which is a little late to start.
Oh wow!
That said, I mean, he's doing fast movies. He did the Suicide Squad. Like he's up. He is physically up to the challenge.
Most of the actors were cast around 35 or late 30s, and they generally play Bond until they're about 50 or 45. Yeah. So like that's the range of Bond.
Yeah, but again,
he's in the range.
He's in the range, and again, he's fit enough to do it. I don't know that you could. I think you're right. I don't know if it'd be a 10-year stint, but or however long.
I also don't know if he would want to do it for 10 years. Like, yes. But like everybody talks about it, so I'm just like, man, these producers are idiots if they don't at least do one.
He'd be a good fit. He'd be a good fit. So we have, I will say, maybe Jason would agree with this. I will say, Roxy, if you are curious, I do think you could check out Casino Royale, and if you liked Casino Royale, jump to Skyfall, and then if you liked both of those, then you could kind of like figure it out from there if you wanted to continue.
Yeah, I Roxy, I would honestly I think Casino Royale will change your mind on Bond, and I know this because it did the same for Ashley. Yeah. Who was not a Bond fan.
I might like it. You guys think I might genuinely actually like it?
Because it's just a good movie. It's not just a good Bond. It's a good movie.
Yeah, Bond is like incidental to that movie. Like you don't have to know anything about Bond. Like it is just a solid movie all around. And then if you want to continue from there, I just be like, just like that's the great thing about the Bond films is you can kind of just be like, well, this one looks interesting, and every once in a while you're gonna get a clunker. Yeah. But every once in a while you're gonna discover something great. Like my favorite Bond film is Goldfinger, and it is Sean Connery's third Bond film. It is the one that set the standard of the gadgets and the women and all stuff like that. But it has such a tone and a feeling of it that I have like never seen from any other movie. It's what made me love James Bond. But you have to watch it. It was made in 1964. Yeah. And there are some very misogynistic things in it. And it's a weird time capsule movie to 1964. But if you can get past that.
Sell though for me, because I'm like, why? You know?
I know. But but the other thing I will say is like, it's hard to watch any movie pre-1990 and not see just rampant misogyny.
Yeah,
that's true. And it's like, what movie am I watching anymore that doesn't have that disclaimer in front of it? If it's not misogyny, it's something else that I'm not loving.
Look, and I say that as a Bond fan who I know it is very misogynistic. I know, and I always tell people that I'm like, hey, there are some good Bond stuff like in the 60s and 70s, but you got to know that like there are some weird real women roles in those movies that are just like pointless, that they're basically paper models walking through the movie.
Yeah. So
okay.
with that said, we've got some questions here. They're all Bond centric. So Roxy, I don't know. You jump in if you have an opinion. We'll try and get through these quick. Leonard Kim says, as far as evolving the character, he says, I could be wrong, but I think correctly choosing the next Bond is enough to continue the appeal to new audiences. Personally, as long as I like the new James Bond and there's a continued emphasis on the spy aspect of Bond, I'm all in. So as far as the questions go, we've got Finio asked favorite James Bond movie. Jason, you already answered that.
Goldfinger,
Jake, Jake, for me, it's Casino Royale. It's
I think my second would be Casino Royale.
yeah, I think because everybody has their Bond. So I grew up, and I think a lot of people, a lot of guys, their first introduction to Bond is whoever their dad's Bond was. So
of course,
the Bond I grew up with was the Roger Moore Bond because that was my dad's Bond because that's the Bond he grew up with. So Jake Hefner asks best Bond intro song. So Roxy, you may be aware of this. Every Bond movie has an intro song. It's a part of the franchise.
One Chris Cornell did,
yes,
and the one Madonna did.
Yes, and Adele did Skyfalls, right?
I don't know.
Adele did Skyfall.
I think
I could almost name every one of them.
I like that.
Didn't Madonna and Chris Cornell do the?
Yes, Chris Cornell did Casino Royale.
Madonna did Die Another Day, which actually is one of my least favorite Bond songs.
So if favorite
like her.
favorite Bond song.
I love Madonna too.
Yeah, favorite Bond song.
I mean, for me, it's actually You Only Live Twice.
Okay.
I get not Nancy Sinatra, but I think weirdly the best one of all, it's I think it might be a tie between Skyfall or Nobody Does It Better, which is from The Spy Who Loved Me, 1977.
Cool. I think I do not have the encyclopedic knowledge of the Bond songs. The one that it's the one that gets radio play, which is "Live and Let Die" by Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney,
yeah,
one of the weirdest Bond songs.
It's a weird one, but it's like I really like
when he puts the reggae in there. That's the point where I'm like,
yeah, it's like, wait, what's happening right now? But I also am a big proponent.
Live and Let Die.
Yeah, that part
that's a Bond song.
Is amazing, and I also like it. I like it more when the British musicians do the intros. I think it
sure
it fits better.
I'm a fan of rocking Bond songs. They got to have an edge to them.
Yeah.
Chris Cornell.
Boom.
Yeah.
Roxy, I think you might have an opinion on this one. Brenda, if we ever got a bi, gay / lady Bond, which guy should be a Bond boy? So if we were in a Bond situation where instead of a Bond girl, we got a Bond boy. What, Roxy? Let's start with you. Who would be a good Bond boy?
Well, okay, give me some you got to be cute, but this is somebody that's the love interest, right?
It's like
a B character. You have to be the beta, right? You can't be the alpha.
Yes, and the Bond girls are known for so Halle Berry's been a Bond girl. What are some other classic Bond girls, Jason? Just like raw sex appeal.
Oh boy. I can't I can't pull the names off the top of my head. The woman who was the lead of the Avengers, the Bond girl in Goldfinger. The woman who was Dr. Quinn.
I interviewed one. I interviewed she's so great.
Famke Johnson is a Bond girl.
Yeah.
She was in Goldeneye.
No, who is it? She was in
I don't know.
Method.
In the new movie, Anna de Armas is one of the new Bond girls. So you get the idea, like sexy as hell. So for me, Roxy, while you're trying to remember that name,
Wedding Crashers.
Oh, Jane Seymour.
Jane Seymour.
Classic.
I love her.
She's in Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all coming full.
And and I think you just mentioned this, Jason, but I'm coming to the actress who played Emma Peel in the original Avengers show.
Yeah, she
Diana
was in Goldfinger.
Diana Rigg.
Oh yeah.
Who's stunning. She was also in Game of Thrones.
Honor Blackman is the actress that I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
She just recently passed away. She's a Bond girl. Can I throw out a real quick pitch? Because I think he would be an awesome Bond boy. I have by the way, have no problem with a male James Bond having a Bond boy, because if you don't think that James Bond has boned a dude to get the missile codes, then you don't know James Bond.
Yeah. I would also argue if you think he's boned a dude and didn't enjoy it, I think you're not thinking of
There
James
you go.
Bond. Yeah.
That too.
Yeah.
He does not. He's all about the pleasure.
Yeah.
I would throw out Timothy Chalamet.
Yes.
As a Bond boy.
Yeah, I think Timothy Chalamet. This is probably going to throw people for a loop, but I actually think Henry Cavill would make a really good Bond boy. I know people throw his name out for Bond. I actually think he might be better as a Bond boy.
You know he was the runner-up for Bond for Daniel Craig.
That doesn't surprise me. I just think he
was the runner-up.
He's such a handsome boy. Yep. I think that he's definitely worth the eye candy. Another actor that I think of, they get a lot of eye candy mileage out of. Incredibly talented actor, but they definitely play up the eye candy angle. Is Yahya Abdul-Mateen from Watchmen and from Candyman. Because there's not a thing that boy's been in that they don't make him take his shirt off.
That's right.
What about Anthony Ramos from In the Heights?
Yes, great.
Sure.
He's really cute. I like him a lot. What about Harry Styles?
Of course. Why not?
He'd be really cute too. Yeah. Thanks for asking, DJ. I like this question.
Yeah, I think let's get them Bond boys in there. I think this might be our last one. Oh no, let's do these two. So, Jason, best or worst Bond gadget?
Ooh, God, that's tough. I mean, for me, the best Bond gadget is the simple one. It is the shoe with the knife in it. So he had a shoe in From Russia with Love that had a knife pop out the top, and that's how he killed the guy. That's how he wins the movie.
He kicks him.
Yeah, he basically like gets him in the jugular. Basically, is how it works. So it's very simple. You can't go wrong with the ejector seat and the DB5, the Aston Martin DB5.
Yeah, I think that'd be my choice. Is just the DB5 because of all the things it does.
The stupidest one, in my opinion, and you cannot, for me, it's the invisible car from Die Another Day. The fact that the car has a cloaking device is ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's also like...
Is he Wonder Woman? What happened?
Yeah, so they invented a car in Die Another Day in the last Pierce Brosnan movie that could somehow turn completely invisible, and they never explained it.
Yeah, I'd also like to throw out there. I think it's in Octopussy. He has like an alligator suit that he like sneaks up.
Yeah, the alligator suit.
And I personally think the seagull. He has a scuba suit with like the seagull on top. It's like, yeah, but seagulls don't like. It's not like they fly and then they land.
That's
and then
from the opening
water.
of Goldfinger, my friend, which I actually think is quite funny.
So yeah, anyway, but it's as far as like I don't know. And when the Aston Martin DB5 is from Goldfinger too, correct?
That's the first one that started it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, final one, if you could pick one movie/movie franchise, this is from Joey, to get the Bond-style opening song treatment, what would it be? So, what franchise deserves to have like an opening song? Actually, it's funny because Deadpool 2 homaged it, and they gave themselves like a Bond-style opening song.
You know, weirdly, I was going to say the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Like, I like opening credit sequences. I think it's a lost art in television and movies. And I kind of don't like that our society and like executives and producers have just been like, no. People can't sit there for 3 minutes and listen to a song and watch like art and images and enjoy the people that put hard work into this thing and created this piece of art. They're like, no, we can't stand for 3 minutes. So like just splash a thing up for 2 seconds and move on.
Yeah.
I think Game of Thrones proved that like opening title sequences are great. I don't know. I would love to see that for the Marvel movies, even if they were just all orchestral.
Yeah.
Like if you just got like sort of the opening suite with the credits, like I think it would be cool.
Yeah, I think you could do something really compelling with that. I think Roxy, correct me, didn't Black Widow do something similar with the thing?
Like, we were a little into the movie, but it was really cool.
Yeah, it was crazy dark though. It wasn't Roxy, do you obviously you're not as familiar with the Bond opening themes, but if there is there a movie franchise that you think would benefit from like that sort of like opening song title credit sequence?
Yeah, I think the Fantastic Beasts movies, because I can't stand them, and so maybe it would give me something to look at.
Yeah, I think for me, and I think that because the closest we got to another Bond style franchise, and of course it kind of moved off in a different direction and superhero movies became their own genre, is the Batman movies. Because there was a time going from Tim Burton to the Joel Schumacher movies where Batman felt like it was trying to do like a Bond thing where we can switch out the guy. There's a loose continuity, but we're not really worried about it. And it felt like they were kind of patterning the franchise off of that before Batman Begins and the hard reboot and all that stuff. And I feel like Batman movies could really, because I think there's some tonal similarities between the two franchises. I think Batman movies could really have like do something in the vein of if you all remember from the Batman animated series, the title cards they had, but like a whole title sequence like that with a song. I think it would be really cool.
The Fast movies too.
The Fast movies more than any other franchise.
Yeah.
I love those movies.
All right.
Although would every song just be like family?
Yeah,
family.
Probably about family, and it'd probably be some
family.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It'd probably be some sort of like like Nickelback style rock from the early aughts.
Boy.
Like it would be
It's
all that
about
kind of
the family.
Yeah.
Even when we're driving cars.
Picturing like a Sesame Street version of family, like family. You know,
Family.
So those are our thoughts on the Bond franchise. Let us know wherever you can find us what you think about all that. Speaking of wherever you can find us, Jason, where can the people find you? What should they be looking out for?
First of all, thanks for having me,
Always.
DJ and Roxy. Always a pleasure. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram @Jawman, and you can come listen to my podcast, Geek History Lesson. It's on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, everywhere. We're closing in on 400 episodes, and we have lots more Bond talk, incling we're going to do a full No Time to Die review with a very special guest in a couple
Daniel
weeks,
Craig.
so that's going to be good. I wish. No. A very funny comedian, actually, is who we're going to have as a special guest. So, go check that out. And if you are curious about any of the comic books I've written or any of the books I've written, you can get us signed copies at jasoninman.com/store. They are perfect stocking stuffers.
Boom. So take a look at that. Roxy, where can everybody find you?
Everywhere at Roxy Stryer.
And as always, you can find this show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter.
Yank out the vowels from stupid.
And you can find me at DJ Talks Trash. There was an update on Hellbent. We're dealing with some shipping stuff, but we're getting it sorted out. So if you've contributed to that or you're interested in that, you can go to hellbentcomicbook.com. Or, I mean, if you contributed, it's in your inbox. So take a look for that. And we will see.
And I did. It's in my inbox.
Boom. It's in his inbox. So it's there. You can go see it. I think next week we might try to do something on DC Fandom. So stay tuned for that.